Yeah, okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation, knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, but more importantly, we have Joe Morris, the City Administrator of Walnut Grove, Georgia. I'm super excited to have him today. He has an incredible background, which I don't want to spoil, but I will say, because out of respect, he was a member of the U.S. Navy, and I hope he dives into that journey and how it's led him to what he does today. But before I get too far ahead, Joe, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. As you can tell, I'm very excited. But before we get into your background, I gotta ask, tell me, what's the secret sauce? What makes Walnut Grove the best place to live in America?
Well, Walnut Grove's a little lucky. They have me, so that's the main thing.
Fair.
So I think what makes Walnut Grove one of the best places to live, especially in Georgia, is they're lucky enough to have a city council and a mayor that really allows me to go out and really take their input into consideration with almost every decision we make. And it's a very unique thing for a city to do, is go from grassroots of the community for major decisions like planning and zoning and what businesses to attract and things.
That is awesome. Like having the answers to the tough questions bubble up from the community in a real and tangible way. That's very special. And that makes sense to me. Now, as I was alluding to it, I'd love to hear your background. Start from childhood. I got to think. So did you think you were going to be running a city one day? Is that always in the cards? What kind of happened
Yeah, when I was a child, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player.
there?
And then when I was growing up, I stopped at 5'6", and that dream went right out the window. So yeah, I grew up between North Georgia and East Tennessee, a lot of impoverished communities, some places that was down on its luck in the early 2000s. That really plays into my background as far as things that I'm interested in, helping people, civic mindedness, and things of that nature. I graduated high school, thought I was going to go play college football in North Carolina, a little D3 school called Methodist University. Found out I was, one, not fast enough. Those guys were, even D3, they're still fast and big. Also didn't have enough financial aid, so came back home, but decided to join the Navy, which I always knew I was going to join the military. I just thought it'd be more as an officer, but enlisted in the Navy. One of the best choices I ever made. It really gave me the opportunity to get an education, learn a lot of skills, meet a lot of people from around the country, see all those different insights, travel the world, see how other places are doing things. And I can guarantee you America's still the best country. After seeing 15 others, they're good too, but we do things different. After the Navy, I thought I was going to go to law school. Got accepted to a lot of really respectable universities. Me and my wife were ready to come back home, though, to Georgia. Georgia had other plans for me as far as their law school. I still have a lot of respect for them, but I think they missed out. They had an MPA program, decided to enroll there. Got a really good internship with who is now my mentor. His name's Christian Hamilton out of Stevens County, Georgia. More of a rural community. They're about 30,000 population for a whole county. And he was one of the best mentors. He's a young guy, really taught me that this could be a career path. He's the county manager there, and really just fell into this role. They offered me a job there. I worked in the elections department for a little while, and this role was available in Walnut Grove. They were looking for somebody that could do some skill transfer, more of a novice administrator that could learn the role and really stay within the budget. And it seemed like I fit the bill, applied, and got lucky enough and blessed enough to get it.
And I love how it feels like you are meant to be there. You had other aspirations. You
Yes,
knew you
sir.
wanted
Yes,
to come
sir.
back to Georgia, but you wanted to go down the law path, but the Master's of Public Administration opportunity opened up for you. and then Stevens County opened up for you and were able to get a good mentor. And then it seems like, well, again, Walnut Grove opened up for you. So I always love when it feels like people are called to do what they're doing. And I can hear it in how highly you speak of the profession, how highly you speak of the community. Now, for our viewers that aren't as well versed in local politics as you are, what is a city administrator?
So a city administrator is the way I like to break it down for people who aren't as familiar is think of your CEO for a private company. They have a board of directors that give the direction, and then in initiatives it gets filtered down to the CEO to make it actionable. So it's the same with a city. You have your elected officials, your councilmen, your mayors, and counties are the same way with their commissioners. And then they send it down to their city manager. City manager makes it happen through all the departments. Only thing that makes it a little different with an administrator is the level of discretion. So, for instance, most managers can really, initiate policy and a lot of other things. I have to ask for a lot of approval. When it comes down to monetary values of things, I'm very limited. But when it comes to personnel, setting the agenda, giving advice to council members of where I think the city can grow, they're very receptive. But that's what sets a manager versus administrator.
Understood. That makes sense to me. Now, taking a step back, you spoke about how a lot of the initiatives are bubbling up from the grassroots level. Have you guys done a strategic planning or comprehensive plan recently? And if so, when the last one was done, what were some of those big strategic priorities for the community?
So the last comprehensive plan done here was in 2020. And I don't like to speak badly about anybody, but it was done a little hastily without a lot of input. It seems like it may have been just a couple of hands in there, and it really does not fit the city. Just a little background on the city. This is a community that for generations was just a farm community. It was a stagecoach stop in the 1800s. So we don't have a historic downtown like you see in most of Georgia. We don't really have a downtown. We have a cross section of two Georgia state highways. The only buildings left from that 1800 era are our city hall and a salon down the road and one house. So not a lot of historic buildings, mostly residents. We don't have, like I said, a downtown. We have a couple businesses and mostly residential housing. And this comprehensive plan made it seem like we had these big shopping centers and things like that that's going to come into the community, but it was very limiting. So our big initiative right now, creating our comprehensive plan coming up next year, we began with it's called Halt Consulting out of Athens, Georgia. They're a planning firm, and we hired them to come in, and they do a big survey throughout the city with mailers, with phone calls, different workshops. People come in, learn a little bit about zoning and how we should do things, and it took about 3-4 months just to get the data, and they interpret that data and give it back to us. And it really gives us an idea of the aesthetic of the city, people like land use, bike paths versus a golf cart kind of community, what businesses they want to see. So we really got a comprehensive survey of the community to see what they want. Because we're starting from scratch. We're city building here. It's an exciting time to be here, and I'm lucky to land here. But before we even get to our comprehensive plan, we have to update our land use, our zoning, make sure everything policy-wise is tight and buttoned up really well before we get into that comprehensive plan. That way we can hit the ground running right away.
Nice. And I know obviously you guys are still working on it, and it's I'm not no one's gonna hold you to anything, but were there any insights from those surveys that you were like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or that is something we need to focus on?
Definitely. So I was always familiar with Walnut Grove. I grew up most of my childhood about 30 minutes away in a place called Winder, Georgia, which also saw an explosion in recent years in population. And that's what we're expecting here. We're about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta and one of the last holdouts for development, especially in this county, Walton County, Georgia. And since the last census, we've grown by a third. And I expect a growth by a third every couple of years until we get to the 2030 census. So I can see us going from 1,700 to about 4,500 by the next census. And it's very interesting to be in this situation. Some of the things we've seen is where people are noticing what's happening around us, issues with parking, big open lots for different retail shops that are empty, poor land usage. We have a community that's very informed as well, which is also a rarity. They're very engaged, and aesthetic wise, they want to kind of drift away from a lot of Georgia towns, which I do find them beautiful, but they see it a little differently. They don't want the rustic look. They want more of the New Orleans look, actually. The doubled buildings with a lot of shrubbery, and so we got a lot of good ideas about aesthetic wise what this community wants to see. And I think the biggest surprise to me was it went back to transportation. Like I said, we're right in the middle of downtown is a cross or an intersection of two state highways. So it's very hard to connect all four pieces of the city easily. This community wants to be a golf cart community, which I was just mind blown. I didn't even know those existed. So I think more like beach towns. And so, but that gave us direction of people want to be able to move through the city easily. We're not a big enough city to have public transportation, but people want to be able to move without their cars. So what we're going to look at and try to get GDOT's involvement with, and this is very early stages, is trying to get some smart corridors. That way people can move safely over these state highways into our downtown. And our downtown actually connects to a new county park. So lots of people coming in, lots of interest in Walnut Grove, and I think that's a beautiful way to do it, is be able to get people moving without their cars.
Nice. Yeah. No, I think having, again, to what you state, that true feedback from the community, you find things that you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, I didn't know this needed to be a golf cart community, but now you do. I find it interesting that when you listen to people, sometimes you get the answer. It sounds so it sounds
Exactly.
simple, but I think you guys are definitely on the right route. And then one thing you said that I wanted to double click on, you said you're in the city building, a kind of stage of Walnut Grove. Can you speak to that? Do you guys have a lot of land that you got putting or going to be put into use? When you said that, what did you mean by that?
So, like I said, Walnut Grove was very rural for a long time. And a lot of that had to do with this city had never had a sewer. All the way up till I believe around 2010 is when they started putting plans in place to have their first sewer built. So everything relied on septic tanks. Septic tanks really stymie growth. You can't do apartment buildings. Big businesses can't come in. A lot of restaurants can't come in because of environmental health. So this community was very reliant on a septic system kind of approach. We're going through a phase 2 project right now to extend what our septic capacity is going to be. And that's going to make it available to our downtown area. So we have a planned downtown with a parkway that comes through off the state highway. Right now, the only thing that's there is a church. And we just started development on what's proposed to be a brewery and a shopping center. A very nice shopping center, not really an off the highway one that you see. No offense to those, but we have some architectural designs but there's still a lot of available land in our downtown, and a lot of that's up for sale. Different developers had pitched some ideas, and other facets of city building is, we're a food desert. Our closest grocery store is 8 miles away, but it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get there, depending on traffic. So that's one of my big priorities, is making sure, we can get some kind of grocery in here, whether it be a small one, such as like an Aldi, or a mom and pop one, which I didn't know really existed anymore, but there's actually one in the county. Hoping to get some interest there. But yeah, I mean, we're starting really from scratch. There's no really big retail. There may be 3 restaurants in this town. It's mostly residential.
Wow. So that the lack of septic does sound like it really could stymie growth. With the second phase of the plan kind of coming through, are there any industries that outside of, it seems like restaurant and food, more from just like a jobs perspective, are there any industries that you're looking to potentially thinking of bringing either now or in the future once things are more built out?
So currently, I do know there's been a lot of attraction by professionals, like legal professionals, CPA firms, things of that nature. But we are looking at other ways to kind of create some job growth. With them coming in, I think it will really help out if we have professionals in our community. But I think the biggest challenge we face right now is, people coming into those entry level positions. We did attract a contracting or a contractor company. I don't know really how to phrase that one, but he's a contractor, professional contractor with a lot of employees, with a lot of skilled labor that people can get in on the ground floor. Really brought him in, and he's planning on moving to the city of Walnut Grove. And that's really going to help a lot for a lot of our young folks that don't plan on going to college, but really want a great career. So really, there's going to be a nice pipeline from our high school straight to that contract. Other than that, more retail, more entry level and positions for people that have been struggling to find employment, especially nearby. It's really tough sell for someone who has, been down on their luck or is just entering the workforce to have to drive 20 minutes for a job that's not paying well. So we're trying to bring more of those in as well, because something we haven't really alluded to yet is and this is an issue across the country, is where younger people are going to be able to afford a house or even rent. And that's an issue we have here, is there's not a lot of places where someone can find a house to buy for under $300,000. For Georgia, the average is probably around 350,000 for the state. In Walnut Grove, I think our average is well over 400,000. And for instance, I can't really afford to live here right now, but we're looking at ways to, get creative with that. A lot of businesses that we're trying to attract, we're trying to see if they're interested in putting apartments on top. And that way, we match the aesthetic that people are looking for. Because usually you propose townhomes and you start to get a lot of negative feedback, but we're trying to get creative to where the residents will accept it, at the same time really service our young adults coming into the workforce, coming out of high school, young people starting families. And we got a lot of really good feedback from our school board from this. We have one of the best principals, probably, and actually, he was just awarded the Principal of the Year award for Georgia. So he'll be on that national stage soon out of Walnut Grove. And he was showing us some data. The high school's growing. It is the biggest high school in the county as far as population size. Our elementary school is shrinking, so they're having less enrollments. So what that tells us is that young families cannot afford to stay here, and they have to go elsewhere. And we want to keep as much talent, as much of our residents as we can, and create a place where they can live, work, play, retire in the community they grew up in. A lot of people see that as a dream, and we hope to make it a reality through some of these plans to bring in some jobs.
Yeah, no, that cradle to grave community is something that everybody's working on. But I've seen people have different issues, whether it's at the back end, maybe the aging in place is a little bit difficult for them, or they're missing that missing middle
Right.
in housing, or they don't have the entry level jobs, or they don't have the middle job. So it's such a delicate balance. When you start to think of maybe the challenges in the community, and you alluded to one with the lack of entry level jobs. What do you think would be the main one? That I'm saying, one that if you just snap your fingers, you got all the budget in the world, you could just take care of it. What would that one issue maybe be?
If I could snap my fingers and make something happen instantly, it'd be a grocery store. I think that would go so far in this community and create entry level jobs.
Mhm.
It will serve two problems at once. Um, and because that's another issue with a lot of our communities like ours, is a lot of grocery stores see rooftops before they decide to come in. And here they will serve twofold. They'll create jobs, and they'll have a community very dedicated to them, because they'd be the only one here. And really, it serves so many of our needs to be able to bring something like that into the city.
I think that's a smart one. Food is imperative. It brings good jobs, and that's something that can only bring other tertiary businesses to it as you bring it in. Now, taking a little bit of a pivot, a lot of our viewers are younger. They're maybe early Gen Z. They're thinking about getting into a career in public service. Can you kind of speak to what your day to day looks like? I know as a city administrator, no day is probably similar, but if you can kind of speak to maybe, or maybe easier, what a week may look like, just so they can kind of get an idea.
So, and I understand the question as far as from a younger perspective. I'm only 29 myself, so I'm coming in here early compared to a lot of people. A city administrator is one of those positions where day to day, week to week, month to month, everything changes. My first month here versus this month, nothing's the same. You'll constantly have big projects that you're looking at the whole time. So you have to maintain your ability to look back on those projects and keep making headway. But at the same time, you have personnel issues that you have to deal with every single day. Just yesterday, we're a very small staff. We have 7 full-time employees. Half of them are public works. Yesterday, we had some sickness go around, a injury, a small injury. It was a bug bite. infection. But some small things, and it turned out that it was just me, my city clerk, and one public works person. So 3 people running the whole city for 3 or 4 days. So you have to be on your toes all the time. Creative solutions. Then you have personnel or citizen complaints. You have to take those very seriously. It may not sound like a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to your residents. And that's one thing that I will never judge a resident on is what I think should be important to them. It could be we didn't cut the right of way like they like it. It may not seem like a big deal to me, but that is a big deal to that resident, and that could eat at them for months as we cut. So being able to, with empathy, speak to resident issues and try to find a solution for them. And when you can't, you know, communicating that. Why can't you? If it's not in your city purview or your budget, explain that to residents. Most of them are okay with an explanation. It's way worse if you don't communicate with your residents. And then as a city administrator, you have, in my case, 5 bosses. So I have a city council and a mayor. All of them have their own priorities. So you have to be able to funnel those priorities into either initiatives, policy, different actions that they can take as a council. So really, you're taking opinions from residents and your city council and trying to advise your council of the best actions. And sometimes that doesn't go the way you think it would, and that's okay. So every day as a city administrator is going to be very different than the day before. Things will come up every single day, and really have to enjoy the wins when you get them. Sometimes things will just line up perfectly and you get a real win out of it. And then you just have to enjoy those moments because tomorrow you're probably going to get a loss. And then the next day it's going to be another loss. Overall, the biggest thing in this industry is having compassion, empathy, and willing to do the work. And you see a lot of people that want the job title, but don't want to be invested. And I'm not saying administrators as a profession itself, but any job with a good title. A lot of people don't realize how much work goes into it. I spend probably half of my availability in my office, which is probably about a third of my day, if that some days, research. Just finding what other people are doing, finding what the issue is for us. Without good research, you're going to have some flawed policy. So having those facts and figures together, you can never be afraid to reach out. Finding mentors, finding really good folks that you can rely on. And that can be, all the way down to a public works crew member in another city. You have to make those connections, find the people that you think can help you. Because this is an industry where if you're the administrator, you're usually the only one. A lot of them don't have deputies. You're going to feel alone. And you want to still look competent, but you have to know when you don't know something and then reach out.
I think that's a fair assessment. I knew when I was even asking that question, I was like, that's the whole glory of the job in a lot of ways. There is no 2 days of
Exactly.
like service. You can ask another city administrator from another place, and they're willing to help you because they have that same spirit of serving. Or you could call a economic developer from another city. Say, hey, like we're thinking about doing this. I've seen so much collaboration, even like regionally, but also in other places because everybody wants to create that impact. And speaking to, we've done a lot of surveys here at Gentry to understand 18 to 25-year-olds and their reasoning to getting into public service. And that impact is always so high on the list. So I'd love to kind of hear if there's an initiative that you have done recently or are planning to do that you feel very proud of, or just something that you've made a strong impact.
So currently we have no formal initiatives, nothing by resolution or anything like that. But there are some things that we have in the works or in our current way of doing things that I think make a true impact to this community. One of them being, and it's kind of a dual thing and something we didn't create ourselves, but our high school, they have a program for sophomores to seniors where they get them in the workforce. They spend a period of their school day going out and working, getting some of that resume building things going on. We just hired an intern from the high school. We usually get 2. We were able to hire one through the summer, and hopefully she'll be with us the whole school year. And she's going to fill a critical role for us. Our social media has never, been what are on track with other cities. And a lot of cities experience this. And with the way communication's going, that's one of the biggest ways to reach people through Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. all these different methods. So we hired a person that the school was using as their social media person. And she's a sophomore in high school going into her junior year, and she's building this program for us. So when she leaves us, doing college applications or even the workforce applications, she's going to have on her resume that she built the social media program for a city. And to me, that is a tremendous impact. And a lot of these kids are able to do that wherever they're going. Some kids are getting OSHA certifications, some kids are getting preliminary welding certificates or whatever they can do at their age. And it's just an amazing program that they're able to do. Second to that is just and like I said, this is very early stages and it will be a formal initiative of being able to bring in some more. I try to stay away from the word affordable housing. I know it's got political connotations, and as an administrator, you try to stay away from those. Finding ways to be able to keep our folks here. And I know we've talked about that before, but that is a big struggle for this community is just affordability. And it's really this whole region right now, within a 150-mile radius of Atlanta, it's just becoming very difficult for young families and anyone hard on their luck to get groceries and be able to afford their house. So we have done things to try to alleviate that. And we understand the uncertain economic times we've been in for the past 5 years since COVID and through different political administrations, So everyone's a little on edge as far as how it's going to continue. So we've actually lowered our millage rate this year. We're the only ones in our county to do that. It's a very rare thing to see a city truly lower a millage rate. You see a lot of rollbacks, but never a lowering. And we lowered it from around 4.8 to 4.1. So we lowered it big. We hope that really alleviates some of the pressure on our citizens, at least from their city portion of their tax bill, to be able to, go out and afford gas, groceries, and save up a little bit, whatever they need to do. And that was our initial way we think we can help out is being good financial stewards. And luckily, like I said, I have a very responsive city council and very responsive mayor, and they take all these into consideration. Their heart is in this city. None of them have crazy political ambition. They really all just came to this city council to serve, and you could tell through a lifetime of service. Most of them have either been on city council for 8 or more years. Some of them were in the community, coming to meetings, making their voice heard, and decided to run. And a little plug for them: we are, to my knowledge, the only full female city council and mayor in this state, and may have been the first one ever. So they're a very interesting, study there of dynamics of elected officials and being full female in a very conservative rural area. So you don't see that much either. Very unique place. Very unique.
Yeah, no, I think that truly makes an impact. From what I'm hearing, giving those students a head start, which is so impactful. To your point, the young lady who is able to do social media for a city, that's huge. And funny enough, in that same survey that we did, social media was one of the biggest roles that people wanted to get into in local government. So I think it's apt that you guys are doing that, and then also making the place livable. So working with people on the millage rate, so they're taking home more or able to keep more. I think that is also very impactful to a different population, but just as impactful. So I appreciate that you guys are making initiatives that do that. Now, fast forwarding to the future. All right, 20 years from now, what are they saying about Walnut Grove?
20 years, that is a long way in the future. So in 20 years, I think they are going to see the city of Walnut Grove as a city that's really got their own cultural identity because, there's a lot of cookie cutter cities out there. And I can see our residents don't want that. So I see a fully fleshed out downtown where, we're having nice festivals every year. The Walnut Festival, we're shooting little walnuts out of cannons. I don't know. But I see this as a community that's not going to lose their current identity of being small town feel, but I do see it growing. That's just the nature of cities. But it's going to be a city that is well respected and good to its residents. I think today is we're putting that as a standard of a city that's responsive, a city that's going to hear your needs and respect what you have to say. I can't speak for previous administrations. I wasn't here, but we are setting a standard for what it's going to be like in this city and what I hope to be like for the county. And you never know, that could extend to the whole state of this county's doing it this way, we should too. And I think we're going to be the standard bearer of small town Georgia.
Love that. I love that. Setting the standard of small town Georgia. I think that's very important. And it only takes one. It takes one town, one city to do it the right way, gain some success. Well, people start moving there and in droves, and then people are going to take a look like, what are they doing? And from my standpoint, what I would take away from that is you guys are listening. It sounds like you're really listening to the people to the point where, people are coming to meetings and then running for council because they feel so strongly, and they must feel like they're heard, and they can do that. And then also to, like you said, just having women leaders in a small, you said conservative area. I think that shows that people are interested in seeing new faces and seeing different types of faces. And that's what the community wants. So again, listening. So I'm super excited. And before we wrap up, I do want to put you on the spot. Like you said, you're 29, already leading the city. So I'm sure you got some good advice along the way. What would you tell some of those younger people? So they just getting their first job, or maybe in college, but thinking about a career in public service. What would you kind of give to them?
There's a lot of advice I'd give in general, but I'll kind of say it from my personal experience. Growing up and between, semi-rural North Georgia and rural East Tennessee, especially early on in my professional development, going in the Navy as a young person, and I always felt like I was the dumbest person in the room, always. I don't know why. It was a confidence thing, maybe. But then I quickly realized, taking an interest, not being afraid to voice whatever opinion I had in a respectful way, having empathy. Those kind of things are what really drove me throughout my military career and now in my public service, is just trying to understand people, meet them where they are. It's easy to read about a problem, but it makes a bigger impact if you have a conversation with someone living it. And that's the beauty of public service in general, is I get to talk to people every day from all walks of life. Some days I have a state senator who owns some property here. So I'm talking with a state senator about his properties. And then some days I'm talking to someone that's, has a child with a disability who can barely utilize the park. So we're talking through things that, how do we make the park more accessible? And it's having that empathy is really what's taken me everywhere, being able to understand people. So my advice to anyone wanting to get into public service is never lose that piece of you. A lot of people get into public service not for the money, because if you wanted to be the head of a company or agency, probably not local government is where you're going to make the most money. Most people get into public, or other reason would probably be job security. In some states, that's not true. Georgia's an at-will state. I could be fired any day. So my advice to people is just, never losing that empathy. If you think something's going to be great for the city but hurt somebody, you got to remember this is their city. So have that empathy, take it into consideration, and that'll take care of a lot of everything else.
I think that's great advice, leading with empathy. And you said something there that I love, and I feel the same. You got to meet people where they're at. So to do that, you have to understand where they're at. And to do that, you have to listen to them. So I think that encapsulates that empathy and meeting people where they're at through understanding and listening. So I got high hopes, Joe. I know I'm excited to see the journey, but I'm even more excited for 20 years from now. And they're using Walnut Grove as that beacon on the hill, so to say, of small town Georgia, that example, that standard bearer that you stated. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the Jentry Podcast. Again, we had Joe Morris, the city administrator of Walnut Grove, Georgia. And again, they will be the standard of small town Georgia, coming at you soon. Joe, thank you so much for being here. Have a great one, everybody.